A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wishing you all a very happy Dhanteras and a prosperous Diwali from the entire team of Notebook. Today, we welcome you to the 190th episode of the Together for Education webinar brought to you by Notebook. 2.5 years passed when the pandemic raged outside our windows and schools had closed down. We here at Notebook felt it was our responsibility to set up a platform for educators to connect meaningfully on discussing problems they were facing with the rising need of digital education and online learning and arrive at common solutions. Today, 190 episodes later, this platform has grown much bigger than we could have ever anticipated. All thanks to your love and support. We have discussed extremely curricular topics here like digital learning, NEP and assessments, extracurricular topics like sports and theatre, topics like school finance and management, and even evolved topics like mental health. Today, we have a very contemporary topic, student exchange programs. It is believed that student exchange programs gained popularity after the Second World War. With the world recovering from the trauma of such a horrific war, it was essential that the young minds developed understanding and tolerance of other cultures. This also promoted their language and communication skills and broadened their social horizons. With the end of the Cold War, the popularity of such programs kept on increasing further. And as we navigated through the most challenging times in the form of the pandemic, student exchange programs now hold a special significance. Our first speaker on this topic is Mr. Philip Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Burrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster. With great distinction, he also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. Mr. Burrett qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. And we here at Notebook are truly privileged to have Mr. Burrett as our senior advisor. Sir, thank you so much for being here today. A very good evening, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Gagori, for that introduction. And let me take this opportunity to wish the entire Notebook team, you, Achin, Subhayu, Abhishek, and Meghna, a very happy Diwali. Also, greetings to our esteemed panelists and our guests who have tuned in. So, when I look at exchanges, I think an exchange is when it always involves giving and taking of something. So we exchange stamps, we exchange greetings, we exchange money, ideas. So to the benefit of both parties. So in the student exchange, there are two types of exchanges. One would be the actual, there'll be an online exchange of ideas and views, or two schools who link up, digitally to do research projects and joint work. You can also have sporting exchanges. And this works very well in the pandemic and lockdown times. And I know that the Doon School had linked up with a school in Pakistan that did an online exchange to do with peace between our two countries. And the students came up with a memorandum that was submitted to the ambassadors of both countries. And this went higher up, and we also had a physical exchange. The other type of exchanges, and I think that's what I'm going to speak about, is that there actually is a physical exchange of students from one school who go to another school for the various periods that you can go for, a short exchange or a long exchange. The idea behind an exchange is that a student gets out of his comfort zone or her comfort zone, out of his familiar milieu, and goes and learns all he can from another country, another society, another social setup, and brings the new learning back to his home school. I don't think that a school that only takes students is a good exchange. I think it has to work both ways. A student has to go and a student from that school has to come. That would be a real exchange. The duration, as I said, can vary from not less than 3 weeks, which is a short exchange, to about 3 months. Anything longer than 3 months, then it gets cumbersome. And I know that in Bombay University, when I was there, we had a student exchange between Sophia College and St. Xavier's. So a student from Sophia, girls, could actually do their last year at St. Xavier's. It was not the other way around. The student from Xavier's couldn't go to Sophia, not a boy, a girl could. And there are also many universities in India who have branches and franchisees in India where they offer a last year at the foreign college. So if you're at Newcastle University, Gurgaon, let's say, you could do the last year at Newcastle in England. There are also exchanges between two residential schools, which is probably the easiest, or two day schools, or between residential schools and day schools, but they're a little more tricky to handle. As Gagori said, the real advantage of an exchange is to learn the cultural diversity. We are now in an age of globalization. There is no such thing as boundaries between countries. You could be born in Tamil Nadu, study in Delhi, work in Singapore, and retire in Canada. So boundaries have become very, very flexible and fluid. And therefore, it's important to learn about other people, other countries, other ways of doing things. So there is a great learning of customs, tradition, language, norms, and also to get out of your comfort zone, socialize with other people. I've seen many students who have gone on exchange and benefited tremendously by the experience, and have come back far more mature and ready to face the things in their own school. Also, there's no point of a student going to something that's very similar to his school. The real learning comes when you get out of your comfort zone and go into a very different type of environment. Now, often Indian students want to study abroad. And so an exchange would actually give the Indian student a glimpse of what the system of study is abroad, which is so different from our road system. It's much more research-based and investigative-based studies. And this can actually bridge this gap in understanding between our schools and a school abroad. And so it gets students ready for a college abroad. Exchanges are a new way of doing things. You travel a lot, you see another country, you meet people. I know that at the Doon school, when students returned from an exchange, and we would send about 20 to 30 students every year on exchange to various schools. And when they came back, we used to have a debriefing session to see what they had learned. Many of them had brought back best practices and some wonderful ideas that we could implement at our school. And some of them took ideas from our school back to the host school. And the host school principal or head of school would often write back and say, "Thank you for sending such a brilliant young man. He introduced the yearbook, or he introduced drama, he left behind something of us from our school," which makes them ambassadors of our school, of our country, actually. So, through drama that they see abroad, guest talks, international festivals, cultural and international understanding is fostered. And when should a person go on exchange is another question. I would be loath to send anyone less than 15 on exchange. And so the best time used to be class 11. So that is the year between the two boards. So you finish class 10 and you have a gap year. So you go in class 11 and you come back to do your class 12. However, now that you have, I think, a board exam in class 11, both CBSE and ICSE, I don't know how many students would be able to give up a month or 2 months to go on exchange. However, summer holidays would be the best, because you could use June and July, or May, June and July, to do this exchange. So as I say, I think the best time would be class 11, not older, not younger, because they're exam years, and for 3 weeks to 3 months. Also, another thing to look at is the time of year. When we exchange with schools in Boston, I know, very, very cold in winter, and our students would be miserable in a cold Boston winter. And foreign students coming from Europe to India in summer would find that very uncomfortable. So time of year, it doesn't have to be exactly reciprocal. We could send in summer and they could send their students in winter. A lot of students stopped coming to India because they have board exams in class 10, 11 and 12. So they didn't want their academic calendar to be disruptive. And so we found that foreign students, especially from the British Isles and US, stopped. And so we looked at Australia and South Africa and other countries. How is it going to be worked out? Well, this is the difficult thing. I think it's got to be first worked out at the level of the heads, the boards. Once the board gives you an okay, I think the school head of school has to start communication and correspondence with the other schools. The other schools have to know a lot about your school. In fact, a lot of heads of schools visited us to see our accommodation, our food, our hospitals. We would also send emissaries to check out their facilities. And once you're happy with where they're going and it's safe, then you organize the exchange. But it takes time. There's a lot of paperwork before students actually head out. There's health insurance, visas, do's and don'ts, restrictions, passports, other things that it takes a lot of paperwork before students can actually catch the flight. In Doon, we were lucky because our school was a member of the Round Square movement. And this is a group of schools from all over the world, very like-minded international baccalaureate schools. And so we would meet each other at various conferences. And so when we exchanged with the Round Square school, we knew exactly what we were going to expect, very similar to schools to ours, residential schools. And these schools were in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, Peru, Germany, Jordan, Kenya, and the UK. We would contact them. Sometimes they never had seats, and so we didn't have an exchange with them. But mostly these were the schools that we exchanged with, and we had the familiar 5 to 6, and every year we added different and new schools. It cost money, so only the people who could afford it could go on exchange. However, the school also started a financial corpus where we would send students who were underprivileged or who couldn't afford it, and if they were good and we wanted them to go on exchange, they would go on school funds. I think once a student from the Doon school went on exchange, it was only the ticket that he paid for. Everything gets taken by the host school. All the food, the medical bills, transport, everything is taken care of. Just as we take care of all the needs and financial needs, from telephone calls to washing of clothes, everything is taken care of by us. I think, I think also sometimes exchanging with schools that are very different from us, like we used to exchange with a school from Jordan, which had an Arab culture, and a school from Peru. When it's very different, I think students have extra learning. There's a lot of learning there when you're out of your familiar milieu. There are problems involved with exchanges. As I said, it takes a lot of time and effort to work out an exchange. The other thing is that sometimes you might send the wrong student, and the host school can be extremely embarrassed by the student that goes. Obviously, the schools give a very detailed report on how the student performed, and we would give a very detailed report on how our exchange student responded in our school. The point is sometimes exams will be missed. During an exchange, you might lose your captaincy, you might lose the fun of hockey season. So the 2 months or 3 months that you're out on exchange, you don't have the fun with your friends at your home school. However, if you go on the holidays in June, July, as I mentioned, you don't lose so much. Sometimes when we exchange with a day school abroad, our students didn't live in the residential hostels, but we lived in host families. Sometimes these were very good. Sometimes they turned out to be a bit embarrassing. Sometimes students, we can't exchange with dangerous countries which are unsafe, or there's a lot of strife or political unrest. Sometimes bad habits are picked up by an exchange. When you exchange with a very liberal school, which is very different systems to ours, we wait with bated breath to see what habits these boys have picked up when they come back. The other problem is sometimes we would send a very, very top-class student, a good student, and he would be offered an exchange, a scholarship to stay on in the host school because he was so good. We lost a fantastic cricketer to a school in England, I won't mention the name, who, of course, when he took the scholarship, stayed on. We were very angry. Of course, he went on to Oxford University and played county cricket. So while it benefited the boy, we were the losers. So that's one of the disadvantages. Then, of course, some people are homesick. The food doesn't agree with them. There's too many rules and restrictions. The culture is very alien. A lot of our foreign students who came to us spent at least 2 to 3 weeks in hospital with Delhi belly and other, malaria and other things. So sometimes the illnesses can get in the way. Not all students return from exchange with happy experiences. Some return very bitter and angry by the way they were treated. There was discrimination. There was color complex. People referred to India as, a backward country. So they came back pretty angry. Of course, I mentioned food and health as an issue. But we found that we sent our best students abroad. But the people we received from schools abroad were not always the best representatives of their country. And we often had disciplinary problems with them. I think, what do students do on exchange? I don't think it's only to go to class and study, because the syllabus is so different. They come from a different syllabus. So they learn Hindi, just like we would go abroad and learn religious studies or psychology or something that's not offered here. We also, our students have to travel a lot. So when we take students from abroad, we make sure they visit Agra, Jaipur, and Fatehpur Sikri, the historical places. We are very well located in terms of Rishikesh, Hardwar, river rafting, mountaineering. So we give these students an experience of Indian weddings, Indian marriages, Indian culture, food, travel. And this is what I think an exchange involves: staying with the host family, being exposed to the culture of the place rather than just sitting in class and studying. Who should go on exchange is another thing. Should we send our best students? Or should we send those who most benefit from an exchange? Rich children who've already been abroad on holidays with their parents, for them, an exchange to a foreign country is not a novel experience. A student who is middle class, who was a lower middle class, who was on a scholarship to the Doon school, would benefit a lot from an exchange. And so who do we send? If we send our best students, they come back and become house captains and school captains. And so they're already a favored group. At the same time, if you don't send your best students, they sometimes go abroad and do nothing. They just pass their time on their own. And we get adverse comments from them that, you sent the wrong student. We are a sporting school and he didn't play any games. So it's very important to see that you match the student's ability or what he wants to do with the type of school abroad and what they have to offer. So we would send our best swimmers to schools in Australia. We would send our best academic students to Eton. We would send our best social, drama, art people to schools in Boston. So it's important to match the needs of the students to what the host school can offer. The best and fairest way of doing an exchange is to put all those people who want to go on exchange into a box, shuffle it around and pick, random, but it sometimes doesn't work. We found that as I mentioned earlier, 20 to 30 students would go on exchange. A process was very tedious because they have to apply, we have to interview them, we have to check on their trustworthiness, how keen they are, what is their knowledge of the home school. Are they just going to have fun and bring back bad habits? Are they going to take bad habits with them? So we have a long process of interviewing and shortlisting before we actually bring out the list of students who have to go on exchange. So in conclusion, I'd say it's a wonderful thing a school can offer. It's not the most important thing. I think schools have a lot of other priorities to deal with. But once a school has got other things in place, I think they can look at exchanges as a very, very wonderful offering they can make to parents on the buffet platter. And I think schools benefit a lot from a student exchange. With that said, I hope I made sense. I look forward to listening to Achin and the views of the panel. Thank you very much, Gagori, and back to you.
Thank you so much, sir. You're truly the SME for this topic, and a big thank you once again for those wonderful deliberations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker of this topic is Mr. Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook, a chartered accountant by training. Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. Achin is a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, a fellow of the ICAI, a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland, and a member of Seema UK. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award, an avid reader and a passionate traveler. Achin has keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He's also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, a very good evening and over to you.
Good evening. Gaguri, am I audible?
Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a very interesting topic. I remember not very long back when discussions about Brexit were in full swing. Deliberations were going on with regard to the fact whether United Kingdom will finally choose and vote for Brexit or the other way around. The whole issue was being examined from different perspectives. And I remember reading quite a few articles that were very interesting. And it was the perspective of academicians, university professors, students, parents. We were all very worried about what impact it will have on student exchange programs. Naturally, prior to Brexit, it was all free-flowing, right? Exchanges were far more, no requirement of visa. It was like, one single territory. And the kind of concerns that academics had expressed at that point of time, I remember very clearly. They had quoted one research after other to substantiate their point of view that indeed students who had the opportunity of going on exchange programs, they had fared distinctly better. They were discussing about students from business schools, students from who were pursuing their degrees in various disciplines, be it humanities, science, etc. And not only that, research had also suggested that when those students were compared vis-a-vis their peers who did not get that opportunity or did not opt for that opportunity, the percentage of students who had gone for exchange programs, their percentage in terms of pursuing masters or going for doctorate or being inclined towards research was far more. So there's no doubt that as far as student exchange programs are concerned, I think it's a wonderful mechanism. And when we discuss about exchange program, naturally the first thing that comes to our mind is about overseas exchange. But I guess even within a country, students getting the opportunity for going for exchange programs, different city, a different school, making new friends, I think that also is wonderful at various levels. I was reading about a few such programs that Australia very actively pursues, different states that the country is divided into, how students get an opportunity to crisscross the country and be a part of a different institution for some point of time. I think the best part of these programs, when we discuss about student exchange program, is getting an opportunity to understand another culture, getting to know about history firsthand, their traditions, customs, conventions, and also very often things that are misinterpreted and very easily brushed under the carpet. When we experience those things firsthand, I think we are far more able to appreciate the other person's perspective, be it in terms of food habits, in terms of ways of dressing, in terms of ways of greeting. For instance, in any Western European country, it's very common, not to simply drop into somebody's house. Always seeking time, always seeking an appointment, and that's logical. They've learned to live their lives that way. Even friends, they don't normally drop in. I think the culture has become same here. Of course, in metro cities, etc., small towns, still a little different. But the kind of opportunity that a student gets in terms of experiencing a different culture firsthand, in terms of learning a new language, because very often we take the effort to learn a new language only when we feel the need, only when it is essential for us to socialize, for us to make friends, for us to survive in a different country. So I think that opportunity is unique. And also, as brand ambassadors, as cultural brand ambassadors, promoting goodwill, promoting friendship, I think that's wonderful. Being able to wholeheartedly support sporting teams from a different country, being a part of a different culture. And at the end of the day, seeing is believing. So it widens horizon immensely. And I think the way this particular topic should be viewed at is not about one single student traveling for an exchange program or maybe exchange of students, but far more importantly, that particular student coming back and sharing the experience with his friends, with his family, with his community that he lives in, and a much larger group being enriched by his experiences. Many more aspirations getting fueled. I think that's the best part of it. Of course, there are challenges. I think Burrett referred to some very, very practical challenges. At times, pedagogy may be different. Way of teaching, speed of teaching, naturally. Also for a student in a new country, at times very easily might get distracted. Many things to manage apart from studies. Lot more things to absorb. But I think that's the whole purpose of it. Education is not confined to a few pages within the textbook. I think it's a much bigger world. And of course, challenges in terms of economic factors, cost. And I'm not talking of only exchange program within schools, but for instance, very often that we see B schools or colleges last year being sent on exchange. At times, there are economic challenges that students might face. But still, I'll say overall, it's a wonderful topic. Burrett has given us a great overview from his practical insights, real life experiences. And we have a wonderful panel here today, who I'm sure will enlighten us further on this very important topic. I thank all of you for giving me a very patient hearing. And without much ado, I hand it over to Gauri. Thank all of you again.
Thank you so much, Achin, for those wonderful deliberations. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we do have a wonderful panel lined up for you. But before we start with the panel discussion, a little bit about us here at Notebook. We at Notebook are an edtech platform that creates short videos pertaining to the school curriculum. This means that every topic from every subject of the school syllabus has been converted into a series of short videos that can be used in two different cases. One is when you as a teacher are starting on a topic in your classroom, you can play one of these videos as a method of visually introducing the topic to your students. These videos are just 6 to 10 minutes in duration and take up very little of your class time while offering the right kind of material to students to generate curiosity and excitement. The second is when the student is studying at home months later, they have access to the same videos on their personal devices, be it a laptop or a smartphone. They can watch the videos over and over again until they get a very clear understanding of the topic that you had taught. What I'm going to do now is play you some short snippets of notebook videos so that you know what they exactly look like.
Hello students, welcome to Notebook. What are the different occupations of people who live in your neighborhood? If you start listing the number of occupations or the number of things people do for a living at present, you will end up with a very long list. Sometimes the same person pursues or follows a number of occupations to earn enough money.
The particles of matter are in constant motion. They possess kinetic energy. As we increase the temperature, the particles start moving faster, as the kinetic energy also increases. The intermixing of particles of different types of
Helen Keller was the first visually and hearing impaired person to earn a bachelor's degree in the arts. She was an American author, political activist, and lecturer. She campaigned for women's rights, labor rights, socialism, and similar other causes. Keller was inducted to the Alabama Women's Hall of Fame in 1971 and to the Alabama Writers Hall of Fame in 2015.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, those were some short snippets from notebook videos as you just now saw. We have today connected with over 3,500 schools and have had more than 44 lakh students benefit from our videos. If you head over to our website www.notebook.school and use our mobile apps for Android and iOS, you would find more than 10,000 such videos at your disposal. With that, it is now time to introduce the wonderful panelists that we have with us here today. Today we have with us Ms. Seema Sharda, Principal, Vantage Hall Girls Residential School, Dehradun. She is a passionate educationist. She holds postgraduate degrees in English and Geology and a bachelor's degree in education. She has a post-graduation diploma in school leadership and management. She is a founder teacher and now the principal of Vantage Hall Girls Residential School. She has taught at various reputed schools throughout the country, such as the Assam Valley School, Phase 4, and Beaches International School, Delhi. She has had the opportunity to observe and draw from the education with practices in the US and Spain. As the principal of a girls' residential school, her primary focus is on individual development of her students, helping them grow with love and care into strong women of tomorrow. Ma'am, a very good evening and welcome to the panel. We also have with us Mrs. Rashmi Singh, Principal and CEO, Poddar Brio International School, Badlapur East. Holding a master's degree in physics with B.Ed, ma'am started her career as A-level and IB-CSE faculty in RIMS International School and Junior College in Juhu. She has headed the physics department of Poddar International School located in Santa Cruz, and students have secured world toppers rank in the subject of physics under her guidance for A-levels. She was trainer in international curriculum, was also shortlisted for Teachers Exchange Program in US. Ma'am, a very, very good evening and welcome to the panel. May I kindly request the panelists to switch on their cameras? Yes, all of you. A very good evening to both of you, ma'am.
Thank you, Gagori.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to start with Rashmi Singh, ma'am, please. Ma'am, my question to you is, are student exchange programs the need of the hour and what are the uses? Ma'am, you're in mute, please. You have to unmute yourself now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you, ma'am, for giving this opportunity to express our thoughts on student exchange program. Well, with the growing need for children, for students to know more about the multicultural diversity, with the world now coming to, the closer platforms, people, whether it is trade, whether it is education, whether it is businesses, and so many other fields, when there are people who are talking globally, when there are global business exchanges, I feel all of us as teachers, educators, we need to encourage the student exchange program, because children learn a lot, be it culture, be it education, be it anything apart from their own motherland. Children get to see a lot of diversity. Children learn to adapt. Children learn to see how they need to be molding themselves, how they need to be, changing their whole persona, how they need to change their ideas when it comes to learning the different culture, the tradition of the students. I remember one student of mine in the year 2012, when she had gone for the student exchange program. She said, ma'am, she was staying with a student of a particular school. So while she used to attend the classes, she used to be staying with that student back at home. So she noticed that there was some differences between, the way they used to be doing things in school and those children. And there's a lot of discipline which the student have. I mean, the student of US actually. So there was a time for a particular, for studies. There was a time for food. There was a time for interaction. There was a time for play. Well, which she said, this is not the culture here. We are absolutely, not keeping up to the time, especially the discipline. So she said she's learned a lot about how to keep up things in discipline, how to do things in a timely manner. So this was one thing I remember for one of my experiences. Moreover, of course, as very rightly said by my earlier speakers, there are problems with respect to food. There are problems with respect to the weather conditions, which the children learn how to adapt themselves, how to make sure that they remain well and they remain healthy during the tenure when they are staying into a different country. Apart from that, I feel there's a lot to learn from the premier teacher, premier institute. These institutes offer a lot to children in terms of, the expertise, which I feel generally, a student who wishes to, learn something specific, which probably may not be available in his or her hometown or the institute which he or she is learning. I think this is one bridge which will gap the requirement, the learning requirement, as very rightly said by the first speaker we had. He said our Indian students, they generally, miss on the opportunities to learn through research, to learn through hands-on experiences, which I feel is one thing which our children in India, they get to learn more on the research-based activities when they go to universities abroad. So this is one thing I feel which is again going to help our students. Moreover, I feel now with the onset of a lot of online sessions of people getting to know the different courses, the different training programs. Well, student exchange program physically could now be constricted even on the virtual mode as well, where when it comes to learning, of course, the learning with respect to academics is absolutely, it could be even achieved through the online courses that are available. But as far as getting to know about the different aspect of, learning, it not just the academic, knowing the people around, knowing their culture, knowing their cuisine. So I feel, yes, a student exchange program is the need of the hour now.
Thank you so much. I would love to come to Seema ma'am next. Ma'am, if you can just unmute yourself. Yes. Ma'am, my question to you is a student exchange program is truly the need of the hour, and how do we match it to the global standards? Because it has been a very, very ancient practice as we see. So how do we match it to the global standards here?
Right, Gauri. So good evening and to everybody present here. And thank you, Gauri and Team Notebook, for inviting me to this panel discussion. This indeed is an interesting and relevant topic. So it is indeed a need of hour, if you ask me. Already it has been spoken how children benefit from these programs. And I've seen it myself that there is a change in their personality and how they come out of their comfort zone and, apply themselves into various activities and try to see the differences and respect and appreciate differences. Talking of differences, I also feel sometimes, when you kind of go for an exchange program and live closely in their atmosphere, go to their classes, go to their activity classes, do some cooking with them, see their food, especially the homestays, you do realize that we all have a lot of similarities more than differences. So that's another, part of education, to understand that though we are different in our way of living, but still deep down, we all are human beings with same emotions and same needs. So these exchange programs do open up that reality too, also for the students. It is need of the hour because certainly education is not just chalk and talk, and it's not restricted to books. And we are preparing our students for the life after school. Like Mr. Burrett mentioned, you study in one place and then, you work in another and you retire from some other place. So that's a perfect example of how we need to know other cultures so that it's easy for us to adapt later on life. It's better to come out of your comfort zone now while you're learning rather than later when you'll be struggling. And it's easier for children who go for exchange programs and study in a school where they are pushed. It's easy for them to adapt later in life. I feel it prepares them for life. Even the problem solving skills, I think they're honed when they go for these exchange programs, because a lot of different situations which they do not anticipate and they have to deal with it. So they think, and this thinking part is all that I think the education, people really want them to do, thinking out of the box or putting them in a situation where they really need to find a solution themselves. So they do a lot of things on their own. It also kind of encourages them to think about global issues because they interact with other students there and think about the issues which kind of otherwise become like one part of a textbook or something that you hear in news. When you see that thing happening and the impact of that global issue, I think you become more of a global citizen. So to answer your question, is it a need of the hour? Certainly it is a need of the hour. Now coming to, are we kind of there as India, to match up the global standards? I think certainly, yes, we have come to that point. And it is about, experiencing different cultures. So which better place than India to offer them diverse culture and food and everything? We have diversity in every part of our country. So if they come here on exchanges, I think we can really give them different tastes. And it's very difficult for people outside India to understand that suppose the team has gone, so you all are Indians, but you speak a different language and your home speaks a different language is spoken. So for them to understand that we are one country, still diverse, but yet, one country, for that they have to come and experience India. India is something everybody should experience. We are certainly ready. The schools and colleges which offer such programs have the infrastructure. And I also feel sometimes it's more of a perceived kind of challenge that we'll not be able to make them comfortable or something like that, because most students who come here are not looking for luxuries, they're looking for experiences. The best part of an exchange programs is that the stories that they get to know in conversations with their student, with the other students, and when they go for homestays, how they would be told that my grandmother would do that, and little stories, and they return with their own stories and anecdotes. I think that's the best part of the learning. Even years after you've passed your school and college, and when you reminisce back, I'm sure those stories will remain with you. I think we are ready. We have a host of activities in our schools. Indian culture is so rich, like I mentioned. Art, I remember a student who had come from Spain, was a very good artist. So she did learn various art forms of India, Madhubani and Worli. She even drew a picture of Shiva on Mount Kailash. So, they also enjoy that. And certainly we can cope up with the global standards, be it terms of travel, be it terms of, taking them out of the school. We have so much of heritage to share, and monuments which we can, and we have history behind everything. So much of history we have to be very proudly able to share. I think India is a very good place for others to come and visit for exchange. And of course there's always a learning. When they come, they bring their set of experiences. When our students go, they have their stories, their experiences. That's how I see this.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As we speak, I have this other question in mind, like to both of you. Like, what are the barriers or challenges to this program you face as school principals from the parents, the students, what are the barriers, or maybe some third party, some agencies? What are the barriers you face?
Barriers, is this question for me?
Ma'am, any one of you can take this. Go first. Maybe Seema, ma'am, you can just
Right.
take this.
Okay, thank you. So barriers, one is the financial part of it, the travel is expensive, though most of the things there back at the school are free in terms of their food and stay, but still, you do take gifts for your exchange students, and there are a lot of hidden expenses. So one is funding, another is safety of the student, which is taken care of. Usually, schools have their homework done before they send their students. Either it is through AFS or the school that they have ties with is known to them. So we do send to a safe place. Homestays again, we do rely on the school that they must have chosen their families with care. So these are the barriers in terms, but I think more and more people are really curious and investing into going into these exchange programs.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Rashmi, ma'am, if you can just take the same question, what are the barriers or challenges you face in this program?
I remember one of my students, I think some 7-8 years back, he had the malarial fever, a slight fever, which he was due for his student exchange program in Mali. So there he developed a very high fever. That time we didn't have these Amazon and different, the different platform where you could get the medicines and things easily. So this boy, he had developed a very high fever. He was hospitalized, where his parents had to rush to that place with the medicine which was prescribed, by the doctors here for the malarial infection. So he went. That's how the whole journey and student exchange program became a little worrisome for the parent and for the child as well. However, yes, medical expenses and the safety of the child is something which I feel is now greatly taken care of. But apart from that, I strongly feel is the cuisine aspect. Generally, the vegetarian students who are, pro-vegetarians like Jain and other cultures, they find it very difficult to survive there. Generally, they have to, have their own arrangements done, either, to look for some food place where they could get what they desire. And this is another thing. And I feel sometimes it is also that the children should be aware of the kind of adaptability with respect to the weather conditions. I remember my own brother, he was also into a student exchange program. He'd gone to Ireland, and it was really difficult for him to survive in the in the minus temperatures in the beginning. So he used to fall unwell quite frequently. So later on, of course, with the passage of time, since he was determined, as ma'am very rightly said in her previous note, that it is the determination and the determination to find out the different life experiences of students who wish to opt for the student exchange program. So these two of it, I feel, are the most important ones. Well, there are many which which a student definitely experiences, but again, if I'm determined and I have a strong will to learn from my life experiences, experiential learning rather, so everything could be sorted out, everything could be taken care of by me as a student.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you both of you for those wonderful deliberations. We had a very, very insightful discussion, and I'm sure just like me, all the audiences gained a lot. I would like to call back Achin for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Gauri. I think really wonderful deliberation, very seamless and very thought-provoking as well, and very informative. And I'm sure members of our esteemed audience also immensely gained from this session and thoroughly enjoyed this. But sir, thank you as always for giving us a great start and for explaining all aspects of the topic, be it benefits or challenges. Rashmi ma'am, thank you so much. I think you very rightly started off by discussing about adaptability, learning to adapt. So I completely agree with you. That is so important. And also the little discussion about online versus physical. Of course, online is far more economical, far easier. But I think, of course, we would all agree that physical has its own charm. Someone traveling and seeing culture firsthand, experiencing it, that's a different feeling altogether. So I think really wonderful. Thank you, ma'am, for some great inputs from your side. Seema ma'am, thank you so much. I think two wonderful points you mentioned, and of course, each point was great, but I think two things really stays with me. One is coming out of comfort zone, which is so important. And I think that is one of the prime objectives of for a program like this, that ensuring the students are able to come out of their comfort zones, especially day school students who are always with their parents. For them, going to a new culture, a new country, being able to adapt homestays with a different family, I think wonderful. And of course, the last bit of it, which is also so true, that irrespective of all the differences, when we experience things firsthand, we do realize that we are all human beings, and as you very rightly mentioned, with same emotions and same needs. So I think really wonderful and great session. I sincerely thank both our esteemed panelists for their time here today, and I look forward to your continued support in the sessions to come. Thank you, take care, and
Thank
goodbye.
you.
Thank
Thank
you
you very
everyone,
much.
and a very happy Diwali.
Thank you very much. Happy Diwali
you,
to you
ma'am.
all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
sir.
much.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you.
Thank you. Wish you a very happy Diwali from Team Notebook. Thank you.
Thank you.